He's Alex Barth. You could catch him covering the Patriots for 98.5 The Sports Hub and across all platforms on social media as well. And my man Barth, he loves a draft. He loves offensive line talk. Barth, how we doing, brother?
I'm good. We're getting into the meat and potatoes of it. Combines next week, free agency 2 weeks after that, and then you got the month sprint till the draft. So it's, the offseason's here. It's here in full. It's here in bulk, and we're gearing up. It's a fun time of year. I wish it mattered a little less around here like it used to back in the day, but this is how you get there. You build the team these next couple of months, and that's how you play more meaningful football games in the fall.
There's nothing like going through a mock draft and sweating the 7th round pick and everyone giving me crap. And I go, look, it matters in this day and age. But let's start with, and I'm feeling for Patriots fans. I feel it myself. My heart got ripped out of my chest with Tee Higgins getting franchise tagged. I was impressed the Bengals are not going to be cheap. Either pay him $26 million or get an extension. What do you make of that news that Tee Higgins will be franchised? And where do the Patriots go from here, Alex?
So just really quick from a Cincinnati standpoint, it doesn't surprise me a ton. I said all year I didn't expect Tee Higgins to be available. This is a franchise that is in as good a position to win as they ever have been. And they have a true franchise quarterback. And we heard Joe Burrow campaigning for them to bring back not just Tee Higgins, but Higgins, Chase, and defensive end Trey Hendrickson as a package. And the Bengals, being the organization they are, they kind of have to listen to what Joe Burrow wants at this point. So it's not surprising to me that's going to happen. Now, it's really easy to sit here and say in mid-February before the Combine, we plan on extending him. Maybe those talks fall through down the road. Maybe there's just not a way to get it done. So if you're the Patriots, you keep checking in and you see where the progress is. Now you're going to have to trade for him on the tag rather than sign him, but you're still going to get him. But now the Patriots have to look elsewhere. And this is just another example of elite players at the wide receiver position do not hit free agency. You either have to draft them or trade for them. So you look elsewhere on the trade market, who are, the guys that we call pre-agents. A lot of these guys, they're not free agents. They're entering their contract year. A lot of them are going to want a new contract. They don't want to play on that uncertainty. So sometimes they will request a trade as leverage to get a new deal. This is what Brandon Ayuk did last year, and a lot of guys have done. At the top of that list, the pre-agents this year is DK Metcalf, who I've talked a lot about. Seattle might be going into a rebuild. They're kind of at a fork in the road here. Do you look to maybe make a move for him? There's been some questions about how happy A.J. Brown is in Philly. Is he somebody who's available? And then, of course, there's always a wild card. If I had told you at this time in 2022, in mid-February 2022, that Tyreek Hill was going to get traded, you would have called me nuts, and you should have. So sometimes these things come out of nowhere, but they're going to have to monitor the trade market. If not, that top-tier coverage dictating wide receiver really isn't going to be available to the Patriots this offseason. And then it's about how do they pivot. And, we'll get into some of this, but they have more than one need. So do you hammer the offensive line? Do you hammer the defensive front? Get a couple of wide receivers who are complementary players who are going to raise the level. And now next year you have a more complete roster. You can allocate more assets towards wide receiver in what projects to be a better year for the position. Or do they say, no, we need to add this. We've been trying to add this for too long. And do they get really aggressive and go for a guy that is the top of the class this year, either in free agency or the trade market, even if he's maybe not the same level of player?
Who do you see those guys as the top of the class? There's Chris Godwin coming off a very severe ankle injury, same leg where he tore his ACL too. Amari Cooper, 30 and older. Stephon Diggs, torn ACL. DeAndre Hopkins only played 50% of the snaps once he was traded to Kansas City, and he's 33. And then there's Tyreek Hill. He said, I'm out. Then he said, I'm sorry. Cooper Kupp wants more money. Deebo Samuel wants to get traded. So who do you see as those guys that are top of the list, free agency or a pre-free agent, like you say, that maybe the Patriots trade for?
I think Chris Godwin is at the top of my list. He's a low, I hate doing the whole number one thing, but in terms of a guy you're going to force a defense to focus on, he's not a guy that defenses can just play straight up. At least that's who before he got hurt last year. There's some risk there with the injury, and that's why he's in this next tier. If they were to add Godwin, to me, it'd probably be on a short-term deal, kind of prove-it deal. He's 28 years old. That would make some sense to me. And it's okay, you've addressed it probably as much as you can realistically address the position this offseason. Some of those other guys you named, like Hopkins, Cooper, they just didn't produce last year. I think it's probably too late. Some of those other guys, too, on the trade market, like Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, if you add them in addition to another wide receiver, right? If Tee Higgins were available, or you add them too if you make a trade for a guy like DK Metcalf, that makes all the sense in the world. If that's your big wide receiver addition, though, I don't think those guys change a ton. So I'm looking at Godwin right now as probably their best option. One other guy that's interesting to me, he's in the last year of his deal. There's some rumblings he could be, cap casualty, and that's Christian Kirk in Jacksonville if he gets cut, or if you can trade for him for, a day 3 pick. Again, not going to totally revolutionize the offense, but a guy that fits in Josh McDaniels' scheme, and he'll give you something. He'll improve that group, and now maybe next year, if you have a chance to add that guy at the true top of the depth chart, Kirk is going to be somebody who's going to play really well as as some people say, like a Robin to somebody else's Batman.
Another Robin we can throw out there, Darius Slayton from the Giants will be 28, 6'1", 200. Or also, what do you make of, you mentioned cap casualties, Devontae Adams. Still producing at his age, still put up numbers with the Jets, how bad that offense was. But I can't ignore, obviously, the past experience he has where he played for Josh McDaniels in Vegas.
I'm generally pretty wary of wide receivers over 30. If they are going to add one of those guys, Adams is at the top of the list for me because, like you said, he doesn't look like a 30-year-old wide receiver right now, and he had some of his best, he has some experience, I should say, under Josh McDaniels. So, yeah, he would make sense. Now, he's maybe more in that lead category as well. It's just, again, you're taking the risk on the age, and this is a guy that has played for bad teams the last few years, and he's in the twilight of his career. Does he want to go somewhere where he can win? Does he want to go somewhere where he's going to have a chance to put up big numbers and maybe get one last big contract? I think he's a guy that might be a little bit tougher of a sell to get to come here. The Jets aren't trading him to you. Like, I would be shocked if that was an in-division trade. So he's going to probably have to get cut for the Patriots to have a shot at him. And then from there, it's, can you win the negotiations?
Now, we go back. I want to go back to that DK Metcalf that you mentioned. You love him. You absolutely love him. Yeah. I don't blame you. I would love him in a Patriots uniform. He's going to be 28. He wants to get paid. But A.J. Brown, around the same age when he was traded for by the Eagles, that prompted a first-round pick. Stephon Diggs, 27 years old. That prompted a first-round pick. I don't think DK Metcalf's in that same tier of just as Stephon Diggs, but he is a game changer. He would be for the Patriots. Yeah. What could you see is that trade price and then also the extension price we could see for DK Metcalf?
So the extension's the easier one. He's not going to get paid what Justin Jefferson is, but he's going to want to be a top 5 paid receiver in the league. Patriots are ready to do that for Brandon Ayuk last year. There's no reason they shouldn't be ready to, and it's going to cost a little more relative to Ayuk because we're, another year ahead here, but I would, and I'd pay him that money. I'd make him a top 5 paid receiver in the league, and to extend the Ayuk comp for the compensation, I would run that package back. I think they're similar players, so that was a second, a fourth, and Kendrick Bourne. I don't know that Seattle's going to want Kendrick Bourne. That was kind of a unique thing where Bourne had been in San Francisco, but if that's like another fourth, right? So call it a 2, a 4, and a future 4, something like that. That should get it done. I don't think you're going to have to trade a first for DK Metcalf. I know A.J. Brown, in that scenario, he was, like you said, I think Metcalf maybe in this scenario is worth a little bit less. Brown was younger at that point. But if it's, look, I'll put it this way. Patriots sitting at 38 in the second round, right? Are you drafting a wide receiver better than DK Metcalf at 38? Mm-hmm. Probably not. And if it's just day 3 picks on top of that, and look, they have 2/3. If you have to throw in the Matthew Judon third to get it across the finish line, or maybe they trade back and add picks and use those to get Metcalf, like, I think it would be doable. It's a matter of, is Seattle going to take that step to move him? Which I could see the path to it. We don't know for sure one way or the other, but it does look similar to some of these other wide receivers that have entered the trade block in recent years. And then it's about him accepting the deal. And I know that there's some quotes out there about him saying he maybe wouldn't love to live in Massachusetts. It's easy to say that until there's $30-something million a year staring you in the face. And that tune change real quick. So I'm not ruling it out yet. I don't know that it's, at the top of the board of the most likely things to happen, but the way these things have gone in the past, the players in Metcalf's situation have become available, and we saw the Patriots chase him last year. Ayuk, Ridley was a little different. He was a free agent, but they chased him. If they're going hard after those guys, if Metcalf becomes available, it would make sense that they'd go hard after him too.
Hey, I love that tone that you're saying of, he said the quotes, you give him 4 years, 80 million guaranteed fully, 50 million at signing. That guy's going to love living in Massachusetts. And Barth, you're a South Shore guy. You'll know where to take him to get him inclined and to love the area, of course, especially around Foxborough. So you listed out, and by the way, you're right. A.J. Brown is 25. DK will be 28. But you also mentioned the rebuild through the draft, and I love you throughout the picks. There's 2/3 the Patriots have to work with. You give up a second, it can all work What do you see them doing in the first? What do you want to see them do in the first? How would you go about this if you're running this draft for the Patriots?
So it's tough, man. I put out my first mock draft of the year last week, and I wrote about this in there. It's the toughest mock draft I've done in, however many years doing this, because like last year we knew quarterback, and you could debate the quarterbacks, but we knew quarterback. The year before that, it was like tackle, corner, receiver. There were 3 positions, and you kind of knew, and you had an inkling based on free agency. Depending on how free agency goes, depending on how the combine goes, like Will Campbell's arm length is a huge factor here. March 2nd, mark your calendars, Patriots fans. That's when he gets measured. Like, there's so many different ways they can go, it's hard to say. As things stand right now, I like Ted McMillan. I don't know that he's quite that guy. So as much as there's no receivers in free agency, I think Ronnie Stanley's going back to the Chargers. I wouldn't be surprised if Alaric Jackson ends up back in LA. Like, are they going to have a chance to add that tackle to protect Drake May's blind side? I don't know if that guy's going to be there in free agency. I believe in building out the line before you add the receiver. I think Will Campbell can be a set it and forget it, 10 plus years quality starting left tackle in this league. If his arms are long enough, to me, he's the pick at 4. If not, it gets a lot more complicated. I don't think Abdul Carter's going to be there. I don't think Travis Hunter's going to be there. I don't love Mason Graham's a good player. I don't love the idea of a defensive tackle at 4. Only 2 defensive tackles have gone in the top 5 since 2011, and neither of their teams ended up benefiting much from that pick. It's Quinnen Williams and Marcel Darius. Good players, but didn't really help the team, right? So now you're probably looking to move back. March 2nd is going to tell us a lot with Will Campbell's arm length, and then free agency is going to tell us a lot. But if Campbell is a tackle, I think he's the pick.
All right, I like it. You have Will Campbell going number 4 overall. That was your latest mock draft that you put out. Whenever they're measuring his arms too, I'm going to watch NFL Network to see just how close you get with the magnifying glass to the measuring tape for when they get out the arm length. What about, take me through this. They're sitting at 4. Hunter and Carter are gone. A quarterback would be sitting there if they both go top 3. Patriots trade back, stay in top 7, accrue more picks, maybe another second rounder. See, a lot can happen after giving up a second for DK Metcalf. I'm kind of going low fantasy land here too. But sitting in that top 7, if it's a Shamar Stewart, a Mike Green, maybe a Ted McMillan, or maybe a trade back and Will Campbell still falls to them at 7, or it could be a Kelvin Banks. You never know. Yeah,
I mean, a trade back's obviously a very attractive possibility for them. And some of the guys you named, like if you're getting other picks, now, I'm more comfortable with McMillan, Mason Graham. If we're going to talk about pass rushers, you mentioned a couple good guys there, but I like Michael Williams from Georgia or Jalen Walker from Georgia. Walker can play some off the ball too. Those guys might make sense in that range. If they really move down and really get a haul, talking to 9 with the Saints, who might be a quarterback team, does Tyler Warren from Penn State come into play? Maybe not their biggest need, but just a really good player. And at that point, are you just trying to add, he might be the best player on the board at 9, regardless of positional value. So if they can move down, then it opens it up a little bit more. You mentioned those trades, the one I look at, I know a lot of people use the trade chart, which has value, but what I like to do is look at trades that happened in the past. And, what is the equivalent? In 2018, when the Colts moved up from 6-3, I think it was 6-3, or moved down from 6-3. With the Jets for Sam Darnold. I butchered that, but you get the trade. It was move down 2 seconds that year and a future second. So no future first. There is no team this year with 2 seconds. But if you look at the Raiders, if you move down to 6, you get their second and a future second. You're getting one less pick, but it's a smaller move and a weaker draft. Now you're picking at 37 and 38. Having those 2 picks back to back, there's a million different places you can go from there. So, would the Raiders take that deal? They'd have to really like Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward, whoever falls. I know there's some Jackson Dart buzz. I don't know why, but there is. But that's the trade I look at. If that trade's on the board, where you get the Raiders second and a future second, that I think might be the overall best case scenario. And you still might be able to get Campbell at 6, and if not, some of the other guys that you mentioned would certainly be there.
Hey, Alex, I love it all, man. Wheels are churning up there. We're talking about trade backs, and actually makes sense in this draft. Long offseason for the Patriots ahead. My man, thank you so much for coming out. Boston has entered the chat. We'll make sure I'll bring you back on after the NFL Combine. And let me know the exact measuring tape that you mark Will Campbell's arms with.
Oh, we'll know. It will be plastered everywhere. That is the biggest number coming out of the Combine is Will Campbell's arm measurement. So I don't think it'll be on the sides of buses. It'll be on billboards. You won't be able to miss it.
Hey, he's Alex Barth, Patriots reporter, and you can catch him hosting Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff on 98.5 as well. Barth, thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.